why are you getting this many cars? Like, and they're just getting repoed. Like, listen, sir, it's bad enough to have one repossession onto your credit, but then you're getting multiple at this point. Unless you're trying to pay back all these debts and everything like that, just stop. You're putting yourself in such a deeper hole. You said, give me a Prius and call it a day? Nah, that's crazy. But since it is that we're talking about rappers and we're talking about celebrities, it's a perfect little segue into stupid things it is that rappers done with their money and things it is like how they went broke. So let's go ahead into the next video. I gotta stop cussing, I really do, but not today. Rappers who went broke in the stupidest ways. Let's get into this damn video, y'all. Let's do it.
Before filing for bankruptcy, 50 Cent was spending $8,000 per month to rent an 18-bedroom mega mansion, while T-Pain's bankruptcy was so brutal that by the end of it, he had to borrow money just to buy Burger King. However, let's begin by talking about DMX, who had to file for bankruptcy on 3 separate occasions as he couldn't afford child support. You see, DMX had 17 children with 11 different women, and
Golly. I thought it was 15 kids that DMX had. He had 17. Woo. Putting Nick Cannon to shame. Stop. 17 kids is a lot. I wasn't recording for some reason, but I am now. 17 kids is a lot of children. Wow. You have a whole, like, you basically have a classroom full of kids, especially with 11 different women. Like, I hear situations like this, and I honestly, for the life of me, I have to put blame on him, and I have to put blame on the women as well. I have to put blame on both of them, because it's like, why? Like, just because it is like somebody is an entertainer or a rapper or whatever, somebody in the music industry, it's not a meal ticket, you know? It's not a meal ticket to be like, all right, yeah, if I go ahead and have a baby by him, boom. That's not always the case, man, because you already seen it is that like most of these people within the music industry are selling their catalogs, quite a few of them, and they still are selling their catalogs like crazy right now. So you have to be very careful with stuff like this. Like, there's not a meal ticket in any form of way. So 17 kids is a lot of kids. A lady had 69 kids. What? Oh my God. Oh no.
almost every child resulted in some kind of lawsuit or child support requirement. For example, DMX was sued for $1.5 million worth of child support in 2008 after a genetic test confirmed that he was the father of a previously unclaimed baby, which when combined with his declining music career, resulted in his first bankruptcy filing. 4 years later in 2012, DMX was sued by a different ex-partner for a further $1 million worth of child support, and a year after this lawsuit, he'd file for bankruptcy a second time. His third bankruptcy would occur in 2016, during which it would be discovered that DMX had racked up a further $1.7 million worth of unpaid child and family support, which accompanied $950,000 in bank debt and $1.7 million worth of tax debt. Since he had $0 in his bank account, DMX was sentenced to 6 months in prison for the child support, a further year in prison for the unpaid taxes, and was also ordered to pay the government $2.29 million in restitution after he was released from his time behind bars. However, DMX never had the chance to pay the amount back in full, as he'd die in April 2021, and despite his extensive family tree, DMX never wrote a will, meaning that his family was still involved in money-related legal battles even after he was dead and buried.
Oh, that's so depressing to hear that, to be honest with you. That's so depressing. And that makes you like really think, like, you want to make sure that you have like a will. You know, like nothing's promised for all of us, and this is why it is like you cannot take life for granted in any form of way. So my best advice, even for me, is definitely getting like life insurance, and definitely making sure that you have a will God forbid if something happens to you and you have like a family member, mom, dad, parental figure, siblings, children that you could able to pass along something with, you know what I mean? Because unfortunately the same situation happened with Takeoff as well. That with his untimely passing, um, now they're also fighting for the same thing. So just really think about this, y'all. Like I know it may be like scary to think about like when it comes down to like death, and thinking about like if you like make it to older age and everything like that, you really gotta think about like like I'm you're not getting any younger for sure. You're not getting any younger. So now you gotta really go ahead and make sure there's like your families is set and everything like that. But with that being said, let's get back into the video.
Tyga was certainly better at managing his child support payments, although he definitely had a weakness when it came to luxury spending. After cultivating his career as a successful rapper, Tyga's name entered news headlines after he'd purchased a $200,000 Mercedes Maybach for his girlfriend, while being $480,000 behind in rental payments on a luxury Malibu home. As a result, Tyga was sued by his landlord, although he'd failed to show up to court as he was on holiday in Turks and Caicos. Yet this situation wasn't the only example of Tyga spending big in one area while being financially behind in another. For example, in 2016, while shopping for a new Bentley, Tyga's Ferrari 458 was repossessed in the parking lot as Tyga hadn't been paying for the loan. Despite this, Tyga would go on to purchase another Mercedes Maybach, as well as a Land Rover, a Rolls-Royce Ghost, and a Rolls-Royce Cullinan, all of which were repossessed for non-payment, while he was seen looking at a brand new Lamborghini. In addition to this, Tyga was sued.
Wow. Why are you getting this many cars? Like, and they're just getting repoed. Like, listen, sir, it's bad enough to have one repossession onto your credit, but then you're getting multiple at this point. You kind of have to like, at this rate, it's just not meant for you, my dear. Like, unless you're trying to pay back all these debts and everything like that, just stop. You're putting yourself in such a deeper hole. You said give me a Prius and call it a day? Not as crazy.
Sued by a second landlord for $181,000 after once again missing rental payments in 2016, which was followed by a third property-related lawsuit in 2020, where Tyga had racked up over $200,000 in damages and unpaid rent on yet another rental property. It was then revealed that Tyga was being court-ordered to pay for $200,000 worth of unpaid jewelry, which accompanied the accusation by his ex-girlfriend Black China that he'd been missing child support payments. And just to add a cherry on top of the cake, while China that he
yesterday I had to give up 3 of my cars and the reasons, the moral beliefs of being a single mother, no support. I'm a mama, single, no support. Sheesh.
He'd been missing child support payments, and just to add a cherry on top of the cake, while all of this was going down, Tyga was in $890,000 worth of tax debt to the government.
Golly.
Despite all of this, Tyga is still seen flexing a lavish life on social media, which is a luxury unavailable to rap producer Scott Storch, who blew through $70 million in less than 3 years. Scott had earned this money by producing for some of the biggest names in music, including Kanye West, Dr. Dre, and Jay-Z. Yet Scott Storch's insane net worth began to diminish after he'd purchased an insane supercar collection,
30 cars, including Bugattis and Ferraris and all that kind of stuff,
as well as a $10.5 million mansion where he housed more than 20 staff, including a boat captain, just in case he wanted to go out on his yacht.
The captain was on full-time staff?
Yeah.
In case you want to take the boat out?
Yeah.
And the boat was how many bedrooms?
7.
7-bedroom boat worth about
7-bedroom boat? Oh my God. And this is just a boat. This isn't even a house. He just housed, he housed 20 staff members in there. Okay. This is 70 mil. I wouldn't even know what to do for real. I mean, it's just like you blowing through that money like, look, you blowing through that money like it's nothing, as if like you could. Y'all gotta be careful with this stuff, man. When it comes down to having money, money comes and goes. Just the same way it is, how does you acquire that money? Is also the same way it is you lose that money. How does a person even do that? Very easy. It's very easy to blow through money very quickly. Very easy. Especially if you don't have like the proper team or like financial advisors, anything like that, to kind of just be like, hey, listen, you're spending way too much. You know, Cardi B is a great example of this. Like, she literally explains to how she has a whole monthly budget of what gets spent in her entire household. She has a whole advisor. She go through all of that stuff, just and explains that everything it is that she has to pay for. When it comes down to stuff like this, is like being in the music industry or being an entertainer or anything like that, you really need to go through your entire budgets and all your expenses and everything like that, just to make sure that you're not spending more money it is that you can, like, that's much of a loss, because you still gotta pay other things. You know what I mean? So, like, you spending this much money that fast is terrible. Elon would never be able to run out of money no matter how much he spends. But I mean, like, but here's the thing though, with like, you really have to be smart with stuff like that. Plus, you also have to make sure that you're putting your money in certain type of like accounts that is also going to like grow interest over time. And may I add, it's not just with banks, because we've learned this before, that banks is only responsible for having 3% of how much money it is that you have in your account. The other amount of money it is that you have, if you have like over $10,000 or anything like that, they use that money for like loans to give out to other people to get the money back. It is that they are losing. So it's a whole different thing. You need to look into things to invest for yourself. That is your money. That is your absolute money at the end of the day. Ideally, that's the thing. You know what I mean? He said, all right, if you had 70 mil, what are you going to do with that type of money? I'm investing my money properly. I'm going to make sure there's like, I'm going to get a couple stocks here, a couple stocks there. I'm going to make sure that I put those into accounts where it is my money at the end of the day. Well, I buy my parents and stuff like that, nice little car, nice little house where it is they are comfortable. You don't want to buy things out of their means unless if it is that you are able to handle the expenses for that. You know what I mean? It's never so much of acquiring these things. It's a matter of maintaining them. Like the cars and stuff like that, getting the maintenance on that stuff like that. You're paying for like the name brand within itself. With a house or anything like that, you're paying for all that stuff as well. Like all these like people that need like more than, if you're just one person by yourself, you really don't be needing 10 bedrooms or 20 bedrooms and stuff like that. Like you really don't need that stuff, but people do it anyway. You know what I mean?
How much?
20 million?
20 million.
Scott went on to explain just how much this lifestyle was costing him.
My monthly overhead for my household employees was somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million a month I was spending.
And that if he continued to work, there wouldn't have been any problems, although this isn't what he would do.
It went from me working and delivering to doing drugs and not going to the studio.
I just stopped working, and then I got depressed and jaded.
As mentioned, Scott stopped making music and instead began to get addicted to the nightlife in Miami. And with no money coming in plus $1 million a month going out, it was only going to be so long before Scott hit zero. By 2009, just 3 years after having a net worth of 70 million, Scott had filed for bankruptcy. 6 years later, Scott would file for bankruptcy a second time, claiming to have a grand total of $3,600 of assets to his name, $100 in cash, $500 in clothing, and a $3,000 watch. Most shocking, his music companies are valued at $0, and in 2014, he made a grand total of only $10,000. Throughout this hardship, Fat Joe was one of the only rappers to keep their friendship with Scott, possibly because Fat Joe went through a similar situation himself. Fat Joe had earned $1.18 million in 2007, $1.28 million in 2008, $265,000 in 2009, and $630,000 in 2010. However, despite having made this $3.3 million in only 4 years, Fat Joe failed to pay taxes on it. He was able to come up with $718,000 and had also done extensive charity work. However, this wasn't enough to satisfy the judge, who sentenced Fat Joe to 4 months in prison. Despite taking personal responsibility for his actions by stating, "There was a lot going on in the years that I didn't file my taxes, but it was my responsibility," less than 4 years later, Fat Joe entered news headlines again after the IRS revealed that he still owed them $1.1 million in taxes.
Make sure that y'all pay y'all taxes, y'all. I'm saying this because it is like, this is my first year that I actually hit thresholds to where I have to pay my taxes for, you know, being a streamer content creator. And with the IRS, it's not like it is that they'll get you like within the first time it is that you do it, but they wait until it is that you hit a certain number to then really go after you and be like, if you do not pay this back, you will go to jail. or prison, I should say. You will go to prison. So I wouldn't play around with that if I were y'all. Make sure that y'all paying y'all taxes, please.
However, this number was absolutely nothing in comparison to Fat Joe's friend Lil Kim, who owed almost 4 times more and became, quote, too poor to file for bankruptcy. Lil Kim wasn't nearly as successful as some of the other rappers featured on this list. However, this didn't stop her from purchasing a—
Listen, don't throw shade at Lil Kim. Lil Kim paved a lot of ways for a lot of rappers. A lot of rappers still to this day. So don't do that. You said why do billionaires and Drake get to walk around free and not pay taxes? That's because it is, again, like it's gonna happen eventually. It happens to everybody. It happens to literally everybody. When you're not paying your taxes, they wait good and ready. Once it is like you get to a certain number to where it is that they go after you. So just because it is people maybe walking around today does not mean it is that they are not gonna get hit with a random audit check. You know what I mean? Because them audit checks is not fun. Even I had to do that because I am technically a business owner. So I had to go through that. But I'm pretty much good as of right now. But imagine getting an audit check and then they find out it is like all this money it is that hasn't been like reported and stuff like that's scary. Scary to think about that. Like you got to pay those taxes back.
$2.3 million mansion back in 2002, notably with the help of a mortgage. Throughout the 2000s, Kim's music career slowed dramatically, and by 2018, Kim was filing for bankruptcy as she still owed the full $2 million on her property, despite the 16 years that had passed. In addition to this, Kim now owed $1.85 million to the government for 13 years worth of unpaid taxes, which accompanied a further $185,000 in unpaid legal fees. The bankruptcy became even worse after discovering that by 2018, Kim was earning a comparatively small $18,000 per month, of which $2,000 went to staff, another $2,000 went to clothing, and $10,000 went to travel fees, meaning she had less than $4,000 per month to dig herself out of $4 million worth of debt. Somehow Lil Kim managed to, quote, get her finances into good shape, and her bankruptcy filing was dismissed. However, MC Hammer wasn't quite so lucky. Despite having the 5th best-selling hip-hop album of all time, which sold 17 million copies and featured songs such as You Can't Touch This, MC Hammer wasn't able to stay out of financial trouble. He bought more than 17 luxury cars, a private jet, 2 helicopters, and 21 racehorses.
Why do you need that? This is what I'm talking about, bro. You have 17 luxury cars, a private jet, 2 helicopters, and 21 racehorses. Like, what do you need these things for? Why do you need 21 horses? What do you need with that? Like, this is what I'm talking about, y'all. Like, I just don't understand this.
Some of the horses were valued at around $1 million. Most of his expenses, however, were on his home. He bought a property in Fremont, California for $12 million and spent another $30 million on renovations to turn it into his dream home. He added a bowling alley, basketball court, baseball field, recording studio, movie theater, 17-car garage, tennis courts, and 2 swimming pools to the 40,000 square foot mansion. One of the pools was shaped like his signature baggy pants that came to be known as Hammer Pants. He added several marble statues of himself throughout the property and installed a gold hot tub in his bedroom. And to keep everything running smoothly, he employed a staff of nearly 200 people on the property, which cost him an estimated $500,000 a month.
You're doing too much. You're doing way too much. You're doing way too much. Way too much. You're doing way too much, bro. Way too much. Way too much.
Surprisingly, less than 5 years later, MC Hammer had filed for bankruptcy, at which point it had been revealed that he hadn't only spent his entire $70 million fortune, but had also taken on a further $13 million in loans, which had been borrowed from over 200 different lending institutions. Despite having spent a total of $42 million on his California dream home, the property resold for only $6.5 million. However, if we're on the topic of expensive homes being repossessed by the bank, we need to talk about Birdman, who's ranked as the 15th richest rapper in the world with a net worth of $110 million. But this is what makes Birdman's story unique. If he was worth over $100 million, why was his Miami mansion being repossessed by the bank for non-payment? Birdman had purchased the home back in 2012 for $14.5 million, yet by 2017 a foreclosure suit had been filed by the bank, and quote, all personal items within the home, including platinum records gracing the walls, a pool table and dozens of pairs of shoes, were all confiscated and placed in storage. The mansion was eventually sold by the bank for $10.85 million in July 2020. However, Birdman's lawyer has come out to explain the foreclosure, stating that it was the result of illegal loan terms set by the bank, so perhaps take Birdman's bankruptcy with a grain of salt. However, there's no ambiguity around how T-Pain went broke, as he's now come on multiple podcasts to explain just how brutal his bankruptcy was. T-Pain had built up a net worth of over $40 million at his peak in 2007, with all of his closest rap friends advising him that as long as he kept rapping, the money would keep on coming in.
Everybody before me that I had to look up to, they were just like, no, this is great. Once you start rapping, it's just money all the time. Nothing bad's ever gonna happen. Your family's not gonna come after you. Just rap, and it's just girls and swimming pools after this.
Terrible advice.
For this reason, his spending began to get out of control.
I bought my Bugatti.
You bought it for $2.1 million.
$2.1 million.
And then you, very shortly thereafter, you sold it for, all they gave you was $800,000.
Yeah.
So it was like renting a car for $1.3 million.
Yeah.
With the purchase of his Bugatti accompanying a $400,000 chain and houses for his workmates.
I got this house I want to get. I got this other house for my assistants and, you know, all my runners and my producers and stuff. So we bought a house after that, and we just started going crazy with the money. I wasn't paying attention to it.
Which was extra bad, as T-Pain never even checked in on how much money he had.
I didn't want to know because I was led to believe that it's only gonna grow. Because these rappers told me that I'm just gonna make money forever. It's just gonna keep going up and up.
In the process, T-Pain began to create less music, and within a few years, his accountant was advising him that he was almost out of money.
My accountant was like, dude, you're like out of money. And I was like, no, I'm not.
And while T-Pain seemed confident that he had plenty of cash left, reality set in for him after he'd have to borrow money just to buy food.
When you say you was broke, you had like $0 broke?
I had to borrow money to get my kids Burger King.
What's the most you ever had in the bank at one time?
40 million.
However, T-Pain was lucky to get away with a loss of only 40 million, as the final person on our list makes this number look like loose change.
Damn.
50.
And he is a Twitch streamer now. I've popped into his streams a couple of times. You know, and he seems to be in good spirits. I just hope it is like, you know, I hope everything's okay with him, because 40 million is still 40 million. 40 million is still a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Let's proceed.
50 Cent. 50 didn't only release the 10th best-selling American hip-hop album of all time, but he also made over $100 million on a vitamin water investment, plus a further $78 million from a luxury underwear deal. In the late 2000s, 50 Cent made an estimated $300 million in only 2 years, so when he'd announced that he was filing for bankruptcy in mid-2015, with debts totaling over $32 million, the entire world was thinking the same thing. How did this happen? Well, after 50 Cent uploaded a sex tape with Rick Ross's girlfriend, 50 was successfully sued for $7 million, which accompanied another court order for 50 Cent to pay $17 million to a headphone manufacturer after one of their collabs went sour. 50 Cent's clothing company G-Unit Clothing then fell out of the spotlight, which accompanied the closing of his movie company G-Unit Productions, as well as his boxing company SMS Promotions. Throughout the whole process, the global financial crisis had taken a toll on the value of 50 Cent's investments, and by 2015 he was earning a comparatively small $185,000 per month. You could certainly argue that this was enough for 50 to get back on his feet. However, $108,000 of this monthly income was going toward an 18-bedroom mega mansion, while the remaining $77,000 was going toward menial expenses such as his gardener, with bankruptcy documents revealing that 50 Cent still owed money to his stylist, fitness coach, and even his barber. Despite this, he began to troll on social media with posts such as this one, spelling out the word broke with $100 bills, and within 2 years, 50 Cent had paid back $23 million worth of his $32 million debt. 50 Cent eventually got back to zero, and according to Google, has built up a net worth of $40 million over the last 5 years.
Yeah, and especially now, like 50 Cent is now in charge of like Power, or Stars, I believe. But like it's doing what it's supposed to do. Like Like if y'all seen this, if you've seen Power Book 2, like raising Kanan, all those shows, it's fire. So I can't be too mad at him. At least it is that he got back to where it is that he needs to be, and he's out here flourishing. So you know, I can't even be too mad at that. I can't. I can't be too mad at that. But W Video. He said if he didn't buy every seat in that man's concert, he wouldn't have gone broke. Listen, I'm gonna say this now. Do you know how petty you have to be to go ahead and have like a rivalry with Ja Rule and buy every seat in that man's concert just to see him crumble? Like that is 50 Cent is petty, extremely petty. And there's a lot of Instagram posts that this man does that, hold on, that makes me question about his pettiness. And it's like, look, you don't have to be this level of petty, but he is. He's really, you see, you trying to be that petty one day? Please don't. Please don't. You don't need to. You don't need to be. But yeah, W Video, y'all.